We're so reliant on our smartphones that our smartphones are making us stupid. I went out to dinner with 10 people recently. There was 10 of us. And 3 people at the end pulled out their phones to divide the bill by 10.
When it is out, it makes the people around us feel that they are less important. You can tell how addicted we are. When somebody pulls out their phone when you're with them, how uncomfortable does that make us feel? You're walking down the street with someone, they pull their phone out. We feel stupid, so what do? We pull our phones out. We're so addicted. Somebody goes to the bathroom when we're at dinner, and what do we have to sit there by ourselves? God forbid we should look around the room for 5 minutes. We pull our phones out.
They did experiments on mice where they did the multitasking. They put flashing lights to mimic going from the computer to the cell phone, the computer to the cell phone to the TV. The mice that were exposed to the changing lights, it took them 3 times longer to solve a maze than the mice that weren't, and the damage was permanent. It didn't improve when they stopped the lights.
33% of people are reading emails in the middle of the night. You wake up, the alarm goes off. What do? Whoop! So you're not even vertical, and you're reading emails. And what is in these emails? Other people's crap.
It's very addictive because if you pull on the slot machine arm enough, you will win. And you never know which pull will reward you. And so not only is that addictive, it's very hard to extinguish that. Social media is like that. The problem with the gadgets is that they interfere with medium to long-term goals.
And so what we're actually doing is creating an entire generation of mini little addicts that are getting hardwired to believe that their sense of self-worth and their sense of coping comes from the device and not from another human being. That's why they suffer real stress when they lose followers. And they get real joy when they gain followers. Like the number of responses they get, or likes that they get, are real.
I never used to think that I was addicted to social media. I mean, I used it the same or less than most of my friends, and I thought, yeah, I can give this up if I want to, I just don't want to. But that's one of the worst things about addiction, is that people don't realise they're addicted or they're in denial about it. Imagine you replace the word social media, yeah, I realise that's 2 words, don't be awkward, with alcohol. So let's say alcohol is one of the first things you reach for when you wake up. Let's say you can't help but have little bits of alcohol throughout the day, and even when you're in the middle of doing something else, your mind kind of drifts to alcohol. You take alcohol everywhere with you.
Damn it!
What happened?
I dropped my phone in the toilet.
And it makes you uncomfortable to go more than an hour or so without alcohol. You're using alcohol more and more, and it's pretty much the last thing you do before you go to sleep. If all that was alcohol, you would say, yes, there is a problem, but because it's phones and social media and everyone's doing it, it's normal, so we think there's no problem. I realised that my relationship with my phone and social media wasn't healthy because as soon as I thought about the idea of giving it up, that felt like a really big deal. Immediately I started to have this sense of fear about what I'd miss out on, like I'd be out of the loop. My mind started to make stupid excuses of why I couldn't quit social media, like I use it for work and I'm a freelance writer, so it's important to have social media to kind of build my brand and get extra work, but they are just excuses. The truth is, the thought of quitting social media was really scary, so I was trying to find ways to avoid it. 15 years ago, I'd never even heard of social media, and now it feels like such a big part of my life that even the thought of giving it up makes me feel physically uncomfortable. That can't be good, can it? Since I've been thinking about this over the last week or so, I've obviously been a lot more aware of sort of how I'm using my phone and how often, and I'll catch myself checking it constantly throughout the day, and even if I'm doing other stuff, like I might be watching a football match or a film or whatever, before I know it, I've got my phone in my hand and I've missed 15 minutes of the match or the film just flicking through social media. Like my phone is very rarely outside of touching distance, it's either in my pocket or in front of me on my desk or next to me on the sofa or whatever. Like I'm hardly ever away from it. I reckon I spend about an hour and a half to 2 hours a day on my phone. And you might be thinking that's absolutely loads and that you don't spend anywhere near that long, and maybe you don't, I don't know. But what I would say is that most people don't realise how much time they're spending on their phone, they tend to underestimate it in the same way that most alcoholics tend to underestimate how much they drink.
I'm not drunk, all right? I just have a speech impediment.
The average person spends 2 hours a day on social media. It's not really our fault that we're addicted. Social media is designed to be addictive.
Thought process that went into building these applications, Facebook being the first of them, to really understand it. That thought process was all about how do we consume as much of your time and conscious attention as possible. And that means that we need to sort of give you a little dopamine hit every once in a while because someone liked or commented on a photo or a post or whatever. And that's going to get you to contribute more content, and that's going to get you, more likes and comments. I mean, it's a social validation feedback loop that it's like it's exactly the kind of thing that a hacker like myself would come up with, because you're exploiting a vulnerability in human psychology.
But what's the problem? If social media makes us feel good, then who cares if we're addicted and using it more and more? Well, it doesn't really make us feel good. It causes us to compare ourselves against other people, which is something that we've always done as humans. There's that old stuff about keeping up with the Joneses, like you look at your next door neighbour and say, well, they've built an extension, like their house is better than ours now, or he's got a new car, or their grass is greener, or whatever. But it's different on social media because A, you're not just comparing yourself to people that you know sort of from the street or from work or whatever. You're now comparing yourself to people across the whole world. And obviously the people who have got the most followers are celebrities and successful people, so you're comparing yourself against people like that. But what's worse is that you're comparing yourself to an unrealistic, fake, manufactured version of their life. Like, nobody puts every single element of their life on social media. They're going to obviously put stuff that they think is more interesting or makes them look good. Even subconsciously they're doing that. So you're only seeing the best part of these people's lives, whoever you're following on social media. Whereas obviously you see every part of your own life, including all the less happy and enjoyable parts. So you're always going to feel inferior when you're making that unfair comparison. Social media is also really distracting. So there's been loads of studies that show kind of humans have only got so much attention, and every time you switch task, it detracts from that attention span that you've got. Now the thing with social media is that we don't tend to say, right, I'm going to have an hour social media session at night. It's always like 2 minutes here, 5 minutes there, all throughout the day, but that means you're constantly switching your attention from one thing to the next. And those moments where actually you might not have anything to do, so you might be waiting for somebody or waiting for a train or a bus or whatever, they're the moments when, before social media, you might have just taken a minute without thinking about it, and it's actually kind of just a moment to pause, relax, to think. Whereas now, as soon as you've got nothing to do, the first thing that happens, your phone comes out. And is it any wonder that we all feel so rushed and overloaded, where the moments where previously it would have been a little bit of quiet, we're now filling those with a load of stimulus from social media. If in that moment you didn't get your phone out, you might see something funny like a toddler walking into a bollard, or you might catch the eye of somebody, start a conversation and end up living happily ever after with that person for the rest of your life. But we don't do that because we've got to get our phone out and see what Range Rover some bloke from Love Island's just bought. Even if you're really focused on something, like you're doing some brilliant work on your computer or whatever it is, something that's really important to you, if your phone's there, as soon as that little light starts flashing or you get that little vibration, how hard is it to ignore that? It takes so much willpower, and a part of your brain is already thinking, wonder who that is, wonder what that was, I better check that. And it breaks that focus that you had. And quite simply, it takes up a lot of time. That 2 hours a day, that adds up to nearly 7 years of your life.
Ow, that's a long time.
I could be doing anything with that time. I could learn a language, I could learn to play guitar, I could just take Simba out for some more walks. It's always been my dream to write a book, and I've never managed to do it. But I've sent 7,000 tweets. Now, if every one of those tweets is only 20 words, that's 140,000 words. That's pretty much enough for 2 books. That's depressing, isn't it? Whatever I do at the time that I'm going to save by not being on social media, it's got to be better than watching Piers Morgan have a massive rant because Greggs have made a vegan sausage roll. Oh, that felt good. If you've ever said, I don't have time to do something that you wish you could do, ask yourself, have you made time to check social media? So yeah, for the next month, I'm going to try quitting all social media. I haven't used Facebook really for quite a few years, but I use Twitter a lot, and I've recently started using Instagram. So they're all going to go. I think I'm going to keep using YouTube because I use YouTube quite differently to how I use Twitter and Instagram, in the sense that with YouTube I don't kind of constantly open that throughout the day, because obviously I've got to be in a situation where I'm ready to watch a video if I'm going to open YouTube. So I'm not just going to open that at my desk and start watching a video of loads of cats falling over. And with YouTube, I tend to find that I watch stuff that I find entertaining and informative, hopefully both. So I do actually get some value from that, because I'm kind of searching out the sort of videos that I'm interested in. Whereas with social media, like, I know you choose who to follow, but you still find that really you're just being thrown stuff at you. Like, you haven't selected what kind of tweets and what kind of pictures you're going to see. If this video has made you want to try quitting social media for a month, let me know on Twitter, Instagram. No, obviously that's not going to work. I mean, you can comment down below. I haven't really decided if I'll check comments or not, but it's the, what's the date? It's the 9th of January today. I'm not sure when this video will be going up, so probably either tonight or tomorrow. But by the time you see it, I'll have pretty much quit social media. So if you want to get hold of me, then I guess you can't really. Maybe I'll create an email address. Okay, I'll create an email address where you can email me if you actually want to, like if there's any particular questions. I mean, it's pretty simple this, you just don't go on social media, like delete the apps, log out of stuff on your computer, don't do it for a month. I can't imagine there's going to be that many questions, but if for whatever reason you particularly feel like you want to ask me a question or talk to me about anything, then I'll create an email address which will be, hang on, okay, so to create an email address, it's heyrobmcgarr@gmail.com. If you want to get hold of me for any reason, then you can use that email address, and yeah, I guess that's it really. If you decide to go for it, then do let me know down below, because other people might see that and it might sort of help them or encourage them or whatever. But yeah, obviously we won't be chatting about it on Twitter and Instagram or anything like that. So I guess I'll see you in the next video, or see you in a month, or whatever, who knows. Good luck.
Set your sights high and make a plan and figure out who you could be, and see if obsessive utilization of smartphone fits into that vision of nobility.